Hey everyone, this is Pavlina from Pavlina's Kids Place. I'm on location with Congressman Frey. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm delighted to be here. I know you have a big audience of young people, and I have 5 children, 4 daughters, 1 son, and 7 grandchildren, 5 granddaughters, and 2 grandsons. So it's just great to be able to talk to you and to all your friends.
Okay, good. You were a congressman during a difficult time, 1969 through 1979. Was there someone growing up as a kid that prepared you for being a congressman and a successful person?
Well, I was not interested in politics growing up at all. My mom and dad were children of the Depression. My dad only went to 6th grade in school and had a small business here, a printing company. Worked hard, very successful, and so I thought they taught me the values of hard work, of setting goals, of not giving up. And they also taught me that there is a right and there is a wrong, and that with every decision you made, you had to live with it, and you had to be able to look in the mirror and not be ashamed of what you did. And so that was really important under the incredible stress we were under those days. Compared to today, it was a lot more violent back then.
Okay, and you mentioned in your book, Political Rules of the Road, that your family had a tough time when you were in Congress, and that was about 40 years ago. Do you think it's harder for kids now and their family members, and why?
No, it's just difficult, period, because you're in a public spotlight all the time. And for instance, if you go to school and, for instance, let's say you did something wrong, minor in that, press and pick it up. You know, they blow everything up out of proportion. It's very difficult. Plus, of course, if you're good at what you do, especially in those days, you could make a lot more money out of Congress than in Congress. So it puts financial pressures on a family. You're gone. I would leave Monday and come back Friday. And when I come back Friday, I would then have different speeches or meetings from Friday, Saturday, and usually Sunday afternoon. So my daughters were swimmers for Winter Park. They were state champions. I had a hard time getting to the big meets because something else was coming on. So it's much more difficult on the family than on the congressperson, because you're there, you're in it, the adrenaline's pumping, you got all these things going, you're around the world, you're in Air Force One with the president, and your family's home trying to make ends meet. So it's and that's true today as it was true 40 years ago and will be true 40 years from now.
Okay. And I've talked to some congressmen, mayors, and senators, and some of them are really nice, and then they get on TV and they'll be like torn apart and get embarrassed. How do you think they feel? Because that would hurt them and their family.
Well, that's part of the price. When you in politics, if you can't stand the sight of blood, especially your own, don't get in it. It's not for wimps. One of my friends who's speaking at the Frey Institute on the 22nd of March at the University of Central Florida, which is on bipartisanship can it work, said politics ain't beanbags. And by what he meant by that, politics is a tough business, and it does. Nobody has thick skin. When people say nasty things about you, it hurts. But if you're good at what you do, you got to be able to put that aside, know it hurts, and just go on anyway. That's part of the process. Is politics can be very difficult, and people can be very mean-spirited, unfortunately.
Okay. And your proceeds for this book goes to the
Lou Frey Institute of Politics and Government at the University of Central Florida, and the former members of Congress for teaching. So I don't get all the money I've given away. I can shamelessly promote the book because none of it goes to me, and it is really a good book. And of course, Florida, of all the states in the country, is 46th in civic education. In other words, there's only 4 states worse than we are in the whole country, knowing what our government is, how it works, and that. So we'll have 700 kids at the Frey Institute on the 22nd of March, and they're coming from all over, mostly middle and high school and some college. And we're not trying to teach them a particular philosophy, but we're trying to tell them what their government is, how it works, and let them make their minds up where they want to go and what they believe. But trying to tell people to, when you hear all these talk shows and read all this stuff and that, just take a deep breath and remember that these people are not, they're interested in ratings. So the more controversial they get, the more ratings they get. And when people use labels, whether it's, black, white, blue, pink, liberal, conservative, whatever, raise a red flag and say, well, what do you mean? What does conservative mean? How do you define it? How do you believe on this issue? Don't let people get away with labels.
Okay. And I'm going to be up in Tallahassee as a page next month. And do you think civics is more important to kids, and why? And do you have any advice for me for my paper?
Do I think civics is important to kids? I think the answer is no, because in Florida you don't even get any civics till about the 7th or 8th grade. Senator Graham, former governor, and I are fighting hard to try and get civics taught in the 3rd, and we do have in the 8th and in the 11th grade, so when the people leave high schools or graduate, they'll have some idea what our country's about and how our system works. And do you know that 40% of the adults in Florida cannot name the 3 branches of government? 42% cannot tell you what separation of powers means. In a test given about 3 years ago, a national test, 4th graders in Florida, 73% of the 4th graders in Florida could not pick out the U.S. Constitution in a multiple choice test as our leading legal document. Wow. So we've got a problem, and what you're doing is wonderful up there. You're going to learn a lot, and when you can come back, you can talk to the other people in your class about it and get them interested, because there's the millennial. Have you heard of the millennial generation?
I haven't.
Okay, well, they try and name generations, and in our country. And the millennials are people who in the 2012 election will be between the age of 18 and 33. So you will be not there yet, but you're edging into it. They will be the single largest voting bloc in our nation, that age group. So they're going to have 85 million. They're going to have an incredible impact on who the next president will be, who will run the House and the Senate. So even though you're young and even though you're not of voting age, and by the way, I wrote the bill with a couple others that lowered the voting age to 18. I did that because I didn't think you ought to get shot at or killed without having the right to vote. That was involving Vietnam. But so it's there. It's not something that's way distant in the future. You're going to have an impact. Your voice in that is going to have a major impact.
Okay. And I always think kids need to be themselves and have fun. Do you have any rules for the road for kids that would want to be in political stuff?
I think they're the same rules that you have for your kids, whether they're in political life or whatever. And that's the first thing is you've got to do is decide it's really something you want to do, not something your parents want you to do or something. So you're really interested in it personally. Then you have to be willing to spend the time to understand it, which means reading and learning about it and going to meetings and doing what you're doing, becoming a page, working a campaign. There's always time for volunteers. A lot of it isn't glamorous, but it's sort of a lot of fun. And also set goals for yourself. I always worked in sort of a 5-year plan. And I would say, okay, 5 years from now, what do I want to be? And I said, well, I want to be in Congress. Everybody laughed at me. They said, you can't be, you have no money, you're a Republican in a Democratic district, you've never run for office, etc. But I knew what I wanted to do, and I set out doing the things I thought I needed to do, the building blocks to run for Congress. And I think it's very important. Most people don't do it, but plan ahead. Doesn't mean that plan A will work, but if you have plan A and fallback plan B or C or D, at least you're not just bouncing off of walls. I mean, even the courses you take and that should play into what you do. Where do you want to go to school? I mean, if you want to be really in politics and that, you want to start in the state legislature in Florida, you're probably better off going to one of the Florida schools, right? If you're in the law practice and you want to practice international law, don't go to a Florida school. Go up to George Washington or Georgetown, go to one of the Harvard, Michigan, one of the big schools and that. So even those things make a difference. And it's not, common sense is not illegal. It is rare, it is not illegal. And so I think the young people think about what you want to do and how you'd want to get there. You have to tell everybody, but think about it.
Okay, well, thank you for talking to me.
I am delighted to talk to you, and I hope we come back and visit someday. Your questions were outstanding.
Thank you.
And we hope that if you get some questions in that, you can go to loufrey.org and leave a message, or you can go to my Facebook or my Twitter or Tweeter. I do all those things, and when I get confused, I call my grandkids and say, okay, help me.
Yes, okay.
All right.